My child, before this season ends, I have one last word for you. Do not move past that sentence quickly. Let it settle. Before this season ends. That means the season has a closing. That means you are not in a permanent state. That means there is a word I have been holding until exactly this point. The point just before the season turns. And that word is the one I am about to give you now. I want to speak to you about the nature of last words. Not last words in the sense of finality, but last words in the sense of timing. A word given at the end of something is not the same as a word given in the middle. A last word carries the weight of everything that came before it. It knows the shape of the journey. It knows what was carried and what was survived. A last word at the close of a season is a summary of what the season was for. That is what I am giving you today. This season you have been in has been one of the harder ones. I am not going to pretend otherwise. I am not going to reframe the difficulty into something that removes its weight before I have honored it. The difficulty was real. The weariness is real. The moments of wondering whether this season would ever close have been real. All of it has been seen. I have held every part of it alongside you. And today I am giving you the word that was always waiting for the end of it. The fact that I have a last word for you means the season is closing, not eventually. The closing is happening now. You are standing at the threshold between what has been and what is coming. You are in the final pages of a chapter that has been one of the longest you have lived, and what I have been waiting to say is not more instruction for how to endure the middle. The instruction for the middle is over. What I have now is a word for the crossing over. That is what today is. That is why you are here. I see you at this threshold right now. I want to describe what I see because I want you to understand how far you have come. You came into this season carrying an expectation that it would be shorter. You began it with a belief that I would move quickly, that the waiting would be brief, that the in-between would not be this long. And then it was not brief. And I watched you recalibrate without losing the faith underneath the adjustment. That is one of the most difficult things a person can do. And you did it. I watched you choose to keep going on the days when there was no visible reason to. Not because you felt like it, because something deeper than feeling kept you in motion. That deeper thing was not willpower, though it had the texture of willpower from the inside. That was the seed I placed in you before you were born, the made-for-this-purpose quality that was put in you because I knew this season was coming before you ever entered it. You survived this season because you were built for it, not because you are superhuman, because I did not send you into it without what you needed to come through. Comment, the season, is turning in the comments if you feel this message reaching the place I made it to reach. And now you are coming through. That is the first part of the last word I want to give you. You are not still in the middle. You are coming through. The crossing has already begun. The evidence of it may not be visible yet in every dimension of your life. But the turning has happened. The season is closing. What I give you today is not a word for someone who needs to keep enduring. It is a word for someone who is about to step out. I call this the last gate, and I want you to hold that name. The last gate is where you are standing right now. You have passed through everything the season required. The endurance, the recalibration, the choosing to continue when the reasons were not visible. Remember it. You are almost through. The gate is open. The season is ending. I want to speak to what you are stepping out with, because what you carry when you leave this season is not the same as what you carried when you entered it. You entered it with belief that had not yet been tested at the deepest levels. You are leaving it with belief that has been tested and has held. That is a qualitative difference. That is a stronger faith, a proven faith, one that now knows experimentally, not theoretically, that it can hold under the weight of a long, difficult season. That kind of faith is not built in easy seasons. It is built in exactly the kind you have been in. You are stepping out with a knowledge of your own endurance that you did not have before. Not knowledge in theory, knowledge from having actually endured. That is a different kind of knowing, and it changes the way you relate to future difficulty. Not because you want more difficulty, because you now know from the inside that the difficult seasons do not break you the way you feared they would. You survived, and you will survive what comes next because you know now that you can. You are leaving this season with a compassion you did not carry when you entered it. You know what sustained difficulty feels like from the inside now, not from the outside, not from the theological description, from the inside. And that knowledge is not a small thing. It is going to make you the kind of presence in other people's lives that you could not have been before. You will be able to sit with people in their hard seasons in a way that only those who have been in hard seasons can sit. I made something out of what you went through. You are going to carry it forward. You are leaving this season with a clarity about what matters and what does not. That is one of the rarest gifts I give. The long seasons strip away what is not essential. They clarify the priorities. They remove the noise. You know now, in a way you could not have known at the beginning, what is actually important in your life, what is actually worth your energy, what is actually aligned with who you were made to be. That clarity is yours, and it does not leave when the season ends. It is built in now. I want to speak to something you may have been afraid to receive in this season. The hope that the season would actually end. Because somewhere in the middle of a very long waiting, it becomes dangerous to hope too specifically that it is ending. You have been protecting yourself from that hope, from saying or feeling or truly believing that the closing is near. Because the hope has been disappointed before, and the protection mechanism your spirit developed was to hold the hope loosely, so that if it is disappointed again, the damage will be less. I want to speak directly to that protected hope and ask you to open it. I am not asking you to perform an emotion you do not feel. I am telling you that the thing you have been protecting yourself from believing is the thing that is actually happening. The season is closing. The word I give you today is a last word because there is not much season left for me to give it in. Receive that. Let the protected hope expand a little. You are allowed to believe you are almost out. Because you are almost out. My child, before we go deeper, I need to speak to the doubt that may be sitting quietly in the back of your heart right now. I know what it says. You are wondering whether what I am telling you, that the season is closing, is something you have told yourself before at other points of the season. Whether you have thought you were near the end before and been wrong, and whether that pattern of almost means that this time might be another almost. My child, I am not offended by that thought. That thought is the reasonable conclusion of a mind that has protected itself from repeated hope. But hear what I need you to hear. There is a difference between what your mind concludes from pattern recognition and what I declare from position. I can see the end of this season in a way you cannot see it from inside it. When I say the season is closing, I am not guessing based on how long it has lasted. I am speaking from knowledge of its design. Every season I allow has a purpose and a completion point. The completion point of this one is now, not because the feeling says so, because I say so. And what I declare from knowledge is more reliable than what the protective mind concludes from experience. The last gate is real. You are at it. Every single element of what is on the other side of this season has been under construction this entire time. I have been building your next chapter with the same specificity and care that I build everything I make. And the reason the season took as long as it did is partly because what I was building was large. A large building takes longer to construct than a small one. The preparation time is proportional to the size of what is being prepared. What is being prepared for you is not small. You are going to look back at the season you are leaving, and you are going to understand every part of it in a way that is only possible from the other side. The long mornings, the sustained believing without evidence, the quiet conversations between you and me that no one else heard, the moments of almost and then not yet. All of it is going to make sense from where you are standing in 6 months. All of it is going to be visible as exactly the preparation for exactly what came after. And when that happens, when the sense of it becomes clear, you are going to feel something you have not felt in a long time. You are going to feel that I know exactly what I am doing, and you are going to be right. Stay with me. In the next part of this message, I want to give you the full weight of the last word, the specific thing I have been saving for the end of this season. I also want to show you something I have aligned for this crossing over moment, something practical and real that addresses the specific state of the mind that has been in a long season, the mind that needs a tool to match the turn it is about to take. Stay. What I have next is the most important part of what I prepared for you today. Stay with me. What I am about to show you in this part is the full content of the last word, not a preview of it. The word itself, the specific thing I have been holding until this closing moment of your season. I want to begin with something I need you to hear without filtering it through your usual skepticism about good things. You deserve what is coming. I know that sentence can be difficult to receive when you have been in a long season of not yet. I know the waiting has created a subtle belief in some part of you that you are somehow less entitled to the good than others who seem to receive it more easily. I want to name that belief and correct it directly. You deserve what is coming. Not because you earned it through perfect performance, not because you never struggled or doubted or felt like stopping, because I created you for it. The destination was designed with you in mind. The provision was built around the specific shape of who you are. The belonging that is coming is not a generic goodness that happened to land in your life. It is specific. It has your name on it. It was made for you before you were made. That is the level at which you deserve it. I want to speak to the word I am giving you before this season ends. It is a word about identity, because what the long season does, beyond the difficulty and the weariness, is slowly erode the settled knowing of who you are. Not the theological truth about your identity, you have probably been able to hold on to that, but the lived experience of it, the felt sense of moving through your days with the settled knowledge of your own belonging and purpose. That felt sense is the first casualty of a long, difficult season, and restoring it is the most important part of the last word. You are not who the season said you were. You are not the sum of what was difficult. You are not defined by what did not arrive when you expected it. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not a person whose story is mostly delay and mostly waiting and mostly not yet. You are a person who has been in a specific season for a specific purpose, and the season is ending, and what you are is not the season. What you are is the person who came through the season. Those are fundamentally different things. I want to give you back the identity that the season worked against. You are someone who was chosen before the difficulty began. You are someone in whose life I have been actively working the entire time the surface looked like nothing was moving. You are someone whose next chapter has been prepared with the same specificity and love as every chapter before it. You are someone I have not lost track of for a single moment in this entire season. You are someone I am bringing through the last gate right now. That is who you are. I want to speak to the specific feeling you have been carrying, the feeling that you have been moving through this season largely unseen, by people around you in some cases, but more than that, by the spiritual reality you have been trying to hold. The feeling that the prayers were going somewhere but you could not verify where. The feeling that the faith was real but the feedback loop was absent. That feeling of operating in the dark, of doing everything you knew to do without being able to see whether it was making contact. I want to address that directly. Every prayer you prayed made contact, every single one. Not one of them was absorbed into silence without response. The responses were not always audible. They were not always visible in the timeline you expected, but the contact was made, and the response was given, and the response is accumulating into what is now arriving. The prayer you prayed at the most difficult point of this season, the one you almost did not pray because you were not sure you had the strength for it, that one especially. I want you to know that one especially landed with full force. That one was one of the most powerful things you did in this entire season. I want to tell you what I have been doing with your prayers while you have been waiting. I have been building. Every prayer was a building block, not in a metaphorical sense, but in a literal operational sense. What you prayed became material for what I was constructing. The faith you expressed became structure. The trust you maintained became foundation. The keeping going you did on the difficult days became walls. And what I have been building with all of it is the specific environment into which you are about to step. You built it with me. You just did not know you were building. I want to speak to what I have been doing in the unseen dimension of your life this entire season, because your experience of the season was the surface of it. The feeling of waiting, the weight of what was not arriving, the sustained effort of holding faith without visible feedback. That was your experience. But beneath the surface of it, in the unseen dimension where I do the majority of my work, the activity has been continuous and significant. I have been arranging things. People who did not know each other are being positioned to meet in your life at the exact time they were designed to meet. Circumstances that look unrelated from the outside are being aligned for a convergence that will only make sense when you look back at it. Resources that were not available earlier in your journey are now available and positioned. The landscape of what you are about to enter has been landscaped specifically. What you are going to walk into is not a random collection of circumstances. It is a prepared environment designed for the specific version of you that the season produced. Before I show you what comes next in this message, I need to speak to something in the back of your spirit. There is a specific thought that lives in people who have been in long seasons and are hearing words like these. The thought goes like this: I have heard encouragement before. I have received words that said the season was turning, and it did not turn the way I expected. and I am not sure I can fully open to this one the way I want to. My child, I am not offended by that thought. That thought is wisdom that developed from experience. The protective caution of a person who has held hope at the edge of a turning that then did not come. Hear this directly. The word I am giving you today is not the same kind of word as a feeling or a moment of inspired hope. This is a declaration made from knowledge of the full story. I am not offering you inspiration. I am telling you what I see. I see the end of this season. I see the built thing waiting on the other side. And I am telling you from that vantage point, not from feeling, but from seeing. The caution is understandable. It is not wrong. But I am asking you to let the caution step back enough for the declaration to land. Because this one is true. And what I want you to understand about that prepared environment is that it fits, not roughly, not approximately. It fits the way something fits when it was made for you, when the measurements were taken with you specifically in mind, when every detail was considered. The relationships in it fit. The purpose in it fits. The peace in it fits. The sense of rightness you are going to feel when you step into it is not going to be a feeling you have to work up. It is going to be immediate, and it is going to be unmistakable, because that is how it feels when you arrive at the place that was made for you. Let me show you something. Let me take you past the threshold you are standing at right now, not into vague future language, into a specific moment on the other side of this season. It is an ordinary day, not a dramatic one. You are doing something simple, something that in the season you are leaving would have carried the faint undercurrent of the weight, but in this moment, that undercurrent is not there. Your body is doing what bodies do when they are in the right place at the right time. It is resting while it moves. There is a quality of ease in how you occupy the space you are in. You are thinking about what comes next in the day, and the thought has no drag to it, no armor underneath it, no managing of expectation, just forward motion from a settled place. And something in you recognizes, without making a speech about it, that you are on the right side of the season. That what the long chapter was building has arrived. That the identity the season tried to erode has been restored to something more solid than it was when you entered. That version of you is not far away, my child. It is on the other side of the last word. The distance between where you are and where that version of you is standing is the width of a single receiving. Let what I am saying today land. That is the crossing. And now, I want to tell you something specific about what is inside, what was built, because it is not just one thing. It is comprehensive in a way that surprises people who have been in long seasons, because the long season tends to narrow the expectation. The expectation narrows to one specific thing, the one thing most needed, the one thing prayed for most consistently, and then what arrives is that thing and 6 other things around it that were part of the same package. Your package is comprehensive. The relational dimension of it has been prepared. The provision dimension has been prepared. The sense of purpose and direction has been prepared. The clarity you have been missing about where you are going and why. The peace, not just the spiritual peace, but the practical peace that comes from circumstances aligning with who you are rather than pulling against it. All of it, together. Arriving together, not sequentially. Not one piece now and others later, together. I want to speak to the peace specifically, because the peace is not a feeling that will come after the circumstances improve. The peace is coming first. It is the leading edge of the package. It arrives before the other pieces, so that you can receive what follows from a place of rest, rather than from the heightened vigilance of someone who has been in survival mode. I am sending the peace first. You may already be feeling the first edge of it right now. The slight softening, the almost imperceptible shift in the quality of your breathing. That is the leading edge. Let it come. I want to speak to the grief section more fully, because the grief of a long season has layers. The surface layer is the grief of what did not arrive on time. But beneath that is a deeper layer, the grief of time itself, of watching a season extend longer than it was supposed to extend, and feeling the weight of all the time that passed inside it. That is a specific kind of grief that does not get talked about much. But it is real. The sense that time was spent in the in-between that you wish had been spent in the arriving. I want to speak to that grief, specifically. The time was not wasted. I know that is easy to say and harder to receive, but I want to give you a specific image for what the time actually produced. Every day of the long season was a day in which something was being deposited in you that cannot be deposited any other way. The deposit of character that comes from sustained faithfulness. the deposit of wisdom that comes from navigating difficulty with grace, the deposit of compassion that comes from knowing suffering from the inside. None of those deposits are made quickly. They require exactly the kind of extended time the season provided. You did not lose time in this season. You filled time with things that will serve the rest of your life. I want to speak to the moments in this season when you were closest to stopping, the ones where the weight was at its highest and the evidence of movement was at its lowest and the faith was at its most threadbare. I see those moments. I was present in every single one of them, and I want to tell you what was happening in those moments from my side of them. Those were the moments where the deepest work was being done, not the most visible work, not the work that produces the most immediate feeling of progress, the deepest work, the kind that changes what a person is made of at the foundation level, rather than at the surface level. The moments you thought were your lowest were actually your highest acts of faithfulness. The ones where continuing cost the most and you continued anyway, those are the ones that matter most to me. Those are the ones that produce the most significant deposits. Those are the ones that built the foundation of the chapter that is coming. I do not ask you to be glad it was hard. I ask you to understand that the hard parts were not accidental. They were the most productive parts of the entire season. My beloved, I want to bring you to something practical before I move to the next section of what I have for you, because I want this last word to be complete. I want it to address everything I see when I look at where you are. And when I look at where you are, I see not only the spiritual state, I also see the mind. The specific condition of a mind that has been in a long season, a mind that has been operating under sustained weight, a mind that has been doing the faithful work of holding on, and that has been doing that work in a state that is different from the state it was designed to operate in. Stay with me as I show you what I mean and what I have prepared for it. Stay with me. In this part, I want to bring the last word into its full dimension. I have been showing you the spiritual truth of what is happening at the close of this season. Now I want to show you the practical dimension of the same provision. And then I want to bring them together so that you see how complete what I am giving you actually is. I want to return to what I mentioned near the end of the first part, about the mind that has been in a long season. Because the mind that navigates a hard chapter for an extended period is not the same mind that entered the chapter. Not in a damaged way, but in a specific way that matters for what is coming. The sustained weight of carrying, the sustained effort of faithful forward movement without visible progress, these things affect the operating state of the mind. The mind under sustained weight narrows. It becomes efficient at the things necessary for survival and less available for the things necessary for expansion, for receiving at the level of what is about to be given. I want to tell you about a man who studied exactly this. His name is Dr. Daniel Barone, a neurologist who worked in New York City for years, studying what happens to minds that are operating below their designed capacity, not because of disease, because of something structural about how the brain was being used. He discovered that most people are operating with their brain in a divided state, the left hemisphere working separately from the right, each one producing a partial version of what it was designed to produce when working in coordination with the other. And the result is a mind that cannot receive, hold, or integrate experience at the level it was designed to. What Dr. Barone found was that when both hemispheres activate simultaneously, in full coordination with each other, something fundamental changes. The mind stops operating on the narrow track of survival mode functioning and expands into the full range of what it was designed for. The capacity for receiving increases. The quality of peace deepens from something grasped at to something inhabited. The clarity of direction becomes clear rather than foggy. And the ability to hold and integrate a large-scale shift, exactly the kind of shift I am bringing you at the close of this season, increases substantially. I want you to understand why this is in this specific message. The message is about the last word I give before a season ends. A season ending is one of the most significant transitions a person goes through. The move from a long, difficult chapter into the prepared chapter that follows requires a mind that can receive and hold and integrate a shift of that magnitude. The mind that has been in the long season, running on the narrowed track, needs to expand back toward its designed state to be fully ready for what is coming. And what Dr. Barone developed is the tool for exactly that. Now I want to tell you about a woman I will call Ellie. She came to the work Dr. Barone had developed from inside a very long season of her own, a generational weight that had run through her family for decades, patterns that repeated regardless of how much effort was applied to interrupting them. Her grandmother had carried a specific burden, her mother had carried it, and she had grown up with the quiet knowledge that she was going to carry it too. She was on the edge of a breakthrough she could feel but not yet see, the way you may feel right now at the close of your season. She found the tool Dr. Barone built, 8 minutes a day, not dramatic in the first week, but over several weeks the mind that had been running on the narrowed track of that generational weight began to expand. The fog that had made clear thought difficult began to lift, and something in the pattern began to interrupt itself in a way that years of effort had not produced. She sent a message with 3 words: the generational weight is broken. That is what happens when the mind is given the tool that fits how it was designed to work, not a miracle that stands separate from the spiritual work, an alignment between what the spirit was ready to receive and what the mind became capable of holding, both activated together, both working in the direction of the same breakthrough. And that is what I am pointing you toward right now, at the close of your season, when the transition requires all of you to be operating at full capacity. I want to speak to what you might be wondering, whether something practical and scientific can actually reach what has been fundamentally spiritual in your season. I want to address that thought directly. The mind and the spirit are not designed to operate in separate compartments. What the spirit receives, the mind must hold. What I speak into your life through your spirit, your mind must be able to integrate for it to become fully lived. A mind operating below its designed capacity limits how much of what the spirit receives can actually manifest in the daily texture of your life. The tool I am pointing you toward bridges that gap. It brings the mind up to the capacity the spirit has already reached. And when those two are aligned, the receiving becomes complete at every level. The science behind what Dr. Barone built traces to Dr. Roger Sperry, who received the Nobel Prize in 1981 for demonstrating that the 2 brain hemispheres function as distinct but complementary systems. Dr. Barone built on that foundation. The tool he created is called the Genius Switch, and it produces whole brain activation in 8 minutes, not through brainwave audio frequencies, not through Hertz-based approaches that work on only one hemisphere. Through the actual mechanism of hemispheric coordination, the way the brain was always designed to operate but rarely does on its own. I want to tell you what whole brain activation makes available, not in abstract terms, in terms specific to where you are right now. The piece I described in the last part, the kind that comes first, the leading edge of what is arriving, it lands more fully in a mind that is operating in coordination. The clarity I described, the vivid sense of next direction, becomes accessible in a mind that is running at full capacity in a way it is not fully accessible in a narrowed mind. The capacity to receive what I am giving you in this message, to hold it and carry it forward rather than have it fade, that capacity is a mind capacity, and the Genius Switch addresses it. I want to speak to the connection between this tool and the last word more directly, because I do not put things in messages accidentally, and I want you to understand why this particular provision appears in this particular message. The last word I give before a season ends is always complete. I do not give a partial last word. I do not address the spiritual dimension and leave the practical unaddressed. I address all of what you need for the crossing over. And what you need for the crossing over includes a mind that is ready to receive and hold the fullness of what the new chapter carries. That is why this tool is in this message, not as an add-on, as a core component of the last word. I want to tell you something about the children who were studied in the research that led to what Dr. Barone built. When Dr. Roger Sperry was conducting the research that earned the Nobel Prize in 1981, one of the things he found was that children begin their lives with a remarkable natural capacity for whole brain integration. Research from that period showed that the vast majority of young children, somewhere above 95%, demonstrate what researchers called genius-level integration of their mental capacities. By adulthood, that percentage drops dramatically, not because the capacity disappears, because the circumstances of life, the sustained stresses, the accumulated weight, the narrowing that comes from living under pressure for extended periods, these things interrupt the natural integration. They separate what was designed to work together. What Dr. Barone found was a way to restore the integration, not to manufacture something that was never there, to restore what was original. And this is the word I want you to hold: restore. What I am bringing you at the close of this season is not a new version of yourself. It is the original version, the one that was designed before the hard seasons accumulated. the one that was whole before the sustained weight began to narrow it. The restoration is the provision, and the genius switch is one of the instruments of that restoration. I want to speak to the people who will listen to this and feel the pull toward what I am describing but hesitate because of a question about whether it is appropriate to combine the spiritual and the practical in this way. Whether using a tool built on neuroscience is consistent with the kind of faith this message has been building, I want to address that question directly. I am the one who designed the mind. I am the one who designed the neuroscience that Dr. Sperry discovered and Dr. Barone built upon. The science does not belong to a separate domain from the spiritual. The science is a discovery of how I built the mind to work. Using a tool that works with the design I put in the mind is not less spiritual than prayer. It is an expression of the same reverence for how I made you. I made you with a mind that was designed for something. Using what was designed the way it was designed to be used is wisdom, not compromise. The investment is $39, the list price is $49, and Dr. Barone offers a complete guarantee, 8 minutes a day for 60 days. If you do not experience a genuine shift in your mental capacity and your quality of receiving, every cent is returned. There is no financial risk in finding out whether this is the key that fits your particular mind at the close of your particular season. 4 additional tools come with it. Each one supports what the activation makes possible. Tools designed to work with an open, coordinated, fully functioning mind rather than a narrowed one that the long season produced. And I want to give you a specific warning, because there are versions of what Dr. Barone built that appear on YouTube and Spotify, uploads that were done without authorization. Those are incomplete copies. They do not carry the full mechanism of what he developed. They will produce at best a partial effect and may produce no effect at all. Use the original. The link in the description of this message is the original. That is the one that carries what was actually built. What I am showing you here is not a detour from the last word. The last word I give before your season ends is a complete word. It addresses your spirit. It addresses your identity. It addresses your mind. It leaves nothing unaddressed, because the chapter you are about to enter requires all of you, and providing only for part of you is not the kind of provision I give. The link in the description is where you go after this. Not because I am pressuring you, because I placed it here deliberately, because it belongs to what I am giving at the close of your season, because the provision is complete, and this is part of the completion. My child, you are at the final part of the last word, and I want to use everything I have left to make sure you cross the threshold of this message carrying what you came here to receive. You came here because something in you responded to the title. Before this season ends, I have one last word for you. And that something in you that responded was not random. It was the part of you that already knows the season is ending. The part that recognized the timing before the mind fully processed whether it was ready or not. That part of you was right. The season is ending. The last word is the one I have been giving you throughout this entire message. And now I want to bring it to its final form. I want to speak to you about what is on the other side of the threshold you are about to cross, not in vague terms, as specifically as I can, because you deserve a specific account of what is waiting. The vague version, things are going to get better, is not the word I am giving. The specific version is, the relationships on the other side of this threshold are richer than what the season allowed. The season, for good reasons, narrowed your relational world. The sustained weight produced a kind of protective withdrawal that was appropriate for the season and is no longer needed. On the other side of the crossing, the relational landscape is opening. The people who belong in the chapter that is beginning are being positioned. The connections that were unavailable in the in-between are becoming available. You are not walking into an empty chapter, you are walking into a populated one, full of the specific people who were made for your specific story at this specific time. The clarity on the other side of this threshold is different from anything the season offered. The season had fog in it, necessary fog in many ways, the kind that kept you from moving in the wrong direction while I was building the right one. But the fog is lifting now, and what you are going to find on the other side is a clarity of direction that you have not experienced in this season. A sense of knowing not just what to do next, but why, and not just why, but what it is building toward. The fog lifts, and the landscape becomes visible, and the landscape is good. The provision on the other side of this threshold is practical. I want to be clear that I do not only provide spiritually, I provide materially. I provide relationally. I provide in the dimensions of your life that require actual resources, actual circumstances, actual external conditions. The chapter you are entering has been prepared in those dimensions too. The specific practical things that the season held from you are being released. What was withheld in the preparation season is being given in the provision season, and the provision season is what is beginning. I want to speak to the word larger one more time, because I used that word in the previous section and I want to root it in something concrete. The reason what is coming is larger than what the waiting prepared you to expect is that the waiting narrowed your expectation. When you have been in something long enough, you begin to adjust what you let yourself hope for. The adjusting is wisdom in the middle of the season, but now I am asking you to unadjust, to let the hope expand back to the size it was before the long middle trained it to be smaller. The original size of what I showed you when this season began, the full vision, the full promise, the full scope of what I said I was bringing, that is what is coming. Not the edited version. Not the modest version that 12 or 18 or 24 months have not yet taught you to settle for, the original. And I am asking your spirit to open back to the full size of it right now, in this moment, as this season closes, as this last word is spoken. Open. Let it be as large as I made it before the waiting taught it to be small. Do you feel what happens in your chest when you allow that, when you let the hope be the full size again? That feeling, that combination of possibility and vulnerability and almost too much to hold, that is what it feels like when a real promise is being received at full scale. That is not the feeling of being set up for disappointment. That is the feeling of receiving something real at the size it was actually given. Remember what I called this, the last gate. It was never a sign that the season would never end. It was always the final passage before what was prepared begins to be lived. The last gate is open. Walk through it now, not enduring, arriving, not the middle, the end. I want to speak to the moment of crossing the threshold, because I want you to recognize it when it comes. The crossing does not always announce itself dramatically, it often comes quietly. A morning where something has shifted without anything visible having changed. A breath that goes deeper than the breaths of the previous season. A first thought of the day that carries a different quality than the thoughts of the months before. The weight slightly less, the inner knowing slightly clearer, the sense of future slightly more solid than it was the day before. These are the signs of a threshold being crossed, not dramatic, not a sudden transformation of every external circumstance, a quiet shift in the quality of being that precedes the shift in the external dimensions. The inside changing first, the outside following. I am telling you this so that you recognize it and receive it as what it is rather than dismissing it as one good day in the middle of the same difficult season. Pay attention. The crossing is coming. When the quiet shift arrives, name it. Say, this is the crossing, and step through. And then stay open in the days that follow. Because the early days of a new chapter still carry some of the thought patterns of the old one. The vigilance, the protective smallness, the managing of expectations that the long season trained into you. Those patterns do not dissolve the moment the season ends. They dissolve over time as the new chapter establishes itself, and I want you to be ready for that. When the old patterns return in your thoughts, do not interpret them as evidence that nothing changed. They are residue from a season that is over, still running through a mind that is in the process of updating. Notice them, name them as old, and choose the orientation of the new chapter rather than the old one. That choosing, done consistently in the early days, is what establishes the new chapter as the real one and retires the old one for good. And here I want to return to the genius switch one more time, not to sell you on it again, because it is directly relevant to what I just described. The tool Dr. Barone built, the one that activates both hemispheres working together, accelerates exactly this process of the mind updating to match the new chapter. When the mind is operating in full coordination, the old patterns of narrowed thinking lose their grip more quickly. The new chapter can establish itself in the mind at a faster rate. The crossing has helped. That is the specific reason I aligned this tool for this specific moment at the close of this season. It belongs here. I placed it here on purpose. I want to speak to what the end of a season feels like from the inside, because I want you to have language for what you are about to experience. The end of a hard season rarely announces itself with a dramatic sign. It more often arrives as a gradual lifting. A morning where the heaviness that was present the morning before is slightly less. A day where the question of whether things will change stops being urgent and becomes something more like a quiet, settled knowing. A shift in the quality of your inner experience that is real but difficult to point to. This gradual lifting is not a coincidence. It is the threshold approaching. The season does not end in a single decisive moment in most cases. It ends the way a long night ends, gradually, the darkness thinning at the edges, the quality of the air changing, the shapes around you becoming distinguishable, and then suddenly you notice that it is morning and you cannot name the exact moment it became morning. That is how this season ends, and that is why I am telling you to pay attention, not with anxiety, with expectancy. The morning is coming. You are going to notice it when it arrives. I want to tell you something specific about the love that has been present in your life through this season, because one of the things the long season does is make it difficult to feel loved in the ordinary way. The absence of visible movement can feel like absence of love. The silence between prayers and visible answers can feel like distance. The sustained difficulty can feel like it contradicts what a loving God would allow for someone loved. I want to speak directly to that feeling. The season did not mean I loved you less. It meant I loved you enough to stay in the longer work with you when the shorter work would not have produced what you needed. The love was most concentrated in the places that felt most empty. The presence was most active in the moments that felt most silent. The building was most intensive in the season that felt most still. That is not a contradiction. That is how I work. And now that you are at the end of it, I want you to carry this truth forward. The silence was not emptiness. The silence was the sound of something being built. I love you with the kind of love that does not calculate what you deserve and give you that amount. I love you with the kind that gives, according to what is needed for the full version of your life to become real. And the full version required this season, and it required the last word, and it required the tool I aligned for the crossing, and it required today. All of it was love, all of it, even the parts that felt like the opposite. My beloved, let me now bring everything that was given in this message to its final distillation. The last word in its most concentrated form. You are not who the season said you were. You are not the sum of what did not arrive on time. You are not defined by the delay. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not less. You are who I said you were before the season began. You are the one who was built for this, the one whose faith holds under the weight of the not yet, the one I prepared the chapter for, the one the chapter was waiting for at the same time you were waiting for it. The one whose crossing I have been preparing to celebrate since the season began. The season had no power to change who you are. It only had the power to reveal it. And what the season revealed, through the surviving, through the enduring, through the faithful forward movement on the days when there was no visible reason for it, is exactly who I said you were. That is the last word. You are who I said you were. And what I said was good. Like this, as an act of receiving what was given here. Write something in the comments, even one word. Write, I receive it. Write, the season is ending. Write, I am ready. Write, the last word is mine. Those words seal what happened in this message. They are not performance. They are the agreement between your spirit and mine that the last word was heard and received and carried forward. Share this with someone who is still inside a hard season and needs to hear that there is a last word coming for them too. There are people in your life who are where you were at the beginning of your season. And what I gave you today is what they need to hear. Give it to them. And subscribe so that when I give the next word, the one that belongs to the chapter that is beginning, you receive it as the person who crossed through, not the one who is still enduring. I love you, my child. The last word was always love, and the love is what remains after everything else the season carried has been given back to me. You are loved. The season proved it at its hardest points. The chapter ahead will show it in its fullness. Walk forward now. The threshold is already behind you.